Have you ever stood in the middle of your living room, hands on your hips, looking at the same cluttered corner for the third day in a row, and whispered to yourself, I want it to feel better, but I don't even know where to start anymore? Maybe you've tried. Maybe you've even sorted and labeled, but somehow the peace never seems to last. And deep down, there's this quiet question that lingers. Am I doing this wrong? Here's the thing no one tells you. Decluttering in your 60s isn't like it was in your 30s. Your body is different, your memories are heavier. And your home has stopped being just a house. It's become a map of your entire life. This video is for that version of you, the one who's already wise, already caring, already doing her best. Together, we're going to walk through 5 of the most common mistakes I've seen women over 60 make when trying to declutter a small home. And more importantly, how to gently avoid them. Because this isn't about being more productive, it's about feeling more peaceful. It's not about making your home perfect. It's about making your space finally fit who you are now. I remember visiting a woman named Eleanor. She was 74, widowed, living in a sweet little one-bedroom with creaky floors and lace curtains that moved like breath when the window was open. She had called me in because, in her words, I'm drowning in things I don't even want, but I feel too guilty to let them go. Her kitchen table was covered in papers, her hallway closet stuffed with coats from winters long gone. But what broke my heart wasn't the clutter, it was the way she kept saying, I used to be so organized. Like she had failed, like the problem was her. We sat down with a pot of tea and started talking. I asked her about the coats. She said, that red one? I wore that to my granddaughter's high school graduation. I asked, when was that? She smiled faintly. 12 years ago. We didn't throw it out that day. We didn't make any big decisions. But we named it. We acknowledged that she wasn't just organizing coats, she was organizing memory. And that changed everything. Because when you understand the real story behind the mess, the solutions stop being mechanical and start becoming meaningful. That's the spirit of this video. No shame, no overwhelm. Just soft truth, a warm cup of understanding, and the quiet belief that your home can feel light again. And it starts by avoiding the mistakes that make it heavy in the first place. Mistake number 1, trying to declutter everything at once. Let me tell you something gently because it's something I've learned, not from a book, but from sitting across kitchen tables with women just like you. The biggest mistake I see again and again isn't about what people throw away. It's about trying to do too much at once. Somewhere along the way, we got this idea that decluttering has to be one big weekend project, one sweep, one purge. But when you live in a small home and you've lived a long life, trying to declutter everything in one go is like trying to untangle a necklace while the lights are off. It leaves you tired, frustrated, and feeling like you failed. Not because you weren't capable, but because no one told you that decluttering isn't a task, it's a process. I remember spending time with a woman named Betty. She was 69, full of fire and kindness, and had lived in the same 2-bedroom house for over 35 years. When I arrived, she had all her kitchen drawers open, bins stacked in the hallway, bags ready to be filled. She said, today's the day, I'm doing the whole thing. I smiled and asked, when was the last time you sat down today? She looked at me and laughed. I haven't. 3 hours later, she was on the floor of the living room surrounded by half-sorted Tupperware, old birthday cards, 5 measuring cups, and a pile of mismatched socks. Her shoulders slumped. She said, I thought I could do this, but I feel worse than before. We made tea, took a breath, then started with just one drawer. One. That drawer got done in 20 peaceful minutes. And when she opened it the next morning and saw it tidy and calm, she smiled and said, that little drawer gave me hope. And that's the real goal. Not a perfect house overnight, but hope. A sense of lightness that builds slowly, kindly. I've done the same in my own life. There was a time when I looked around my study and thought, I should clear this all out. I had books I hadn't touched in years, stacks of papers I no longer needed, pens that didn't even work. I tried doing it all in one afternoon. Ended up overwhelmed, surrounded by piles, and took a nap instead. The next day, I chose just the desk drawer. That led to the pen cup, then the bookshelf. It took a week, but I never felt rushed. And better than that, I never felt ashamed, because that's what trying to do everything at once does. It doesn't just exhaust your body, it wears on your heart. It turns a hopeful act into a heavy one. And that's not what we want for you. You deserve a decluttering process that feels doable, gentle, encouraging, one that honors your age, your energy, your memories. Peace doesn't come from doing it all at once. It comes from choosing one little place and being gentle with yourself in it. So if you're staring at a room right now that feels like too much, mistake number 2, buying organizers before you declutter. Let me ask you something gently. Have you ever walked into a store, Target, maybe the Container Store, and found yourself standing in front of rows and rows of beautiful bins, baskets, drawer dividers, stackable shelves, and thought, maybe if I buy the right one, this will finally get easier? Oh, I've been there. I think we all have. There's something so hopeful about a pretty box, like it holds not just our things, but the solution, the feeling of being in control. But here's the truth most people don't tell you. No bin in the world can fix clutter you haven't sorted yet. That's mistake number 2, buying organizers before you declutter. And it's such an easy trap. We want a fresh start, and those containers feel like progress. But when we bring them home and start stuffing them with things we haven't decided on, we're not organizing. We're just hiding. We're shuffling. And in a small home, hiding clutter only makes it harder to breathe, because now the clutter isn't just loose. It's contained and stacked and still taking up space in our life. I remember helping a woman named Joyce. She had moved into a cozy one-bedroom after retiring, and she was proud of how tidy it looked. But when we opened the closets, it was all bins, labeled, stacked, so sorted, but still overflowing. I asked her, "When's the last time you used what's in this one labeled gift wrap, my ESC?" She smiled, a little sheepishly. "Well, maybe 6 or 7 years ago?" We laughed. And then we sat down and opened them together. Turns out, half of what she had stored wasn't useful. And more importantly, it didn't reflect the life she was living now. She no longer hosted big parties. She didn't wrap gifts with ribbon and glitter. She gave books, or cards, or small plants. That bin had become a box of good intentions that no longer matched her reality. What we did next changed everything. We emptied all the bins, not to get rid of everything, but to re-see it, to ask the real questions. Do I still need this? Do I still want this? Does this still support my wingy life now? Only after that, we chose 3 small containers that truly fit what she decided to keep. The rest? Donated, recycled, or released. Her hallway closet went from a puzzle of plastic to a space that felt like a gentle exhale. And I'll tell you something personal. I used to have a basket by my recliner full of magazines I planned to read. Every week I added more. Eventually the basket overflowed. Did I read them? Not really. But the basket made me feel like I might. Until one day, I dumped it out and asked myself, which ones still bring me curiosity? I kept 2, recycled the rest. That basket is now where I keep my prayer journal and a small flashlight. Feels more me, because the real goal isn't to store better. It's to need less storage in the first place. No container can bring clarity if the clutter hasn't been questioned first. So next time you feel the urge to fix the clutter by buying a new container, pause. Just for a moment, ask yourself, What am I really trying to hold on to? Mistake number 3, decluttering with guilt instead of grace. There's a certain drawer in almost every home I visit. Sometimes it's in the hallway, sometimes the bedroom, often in the kitchen. And when we open it, the air shifts, not because of the clutter inside, but because of what it represents. Gifts never used, cards never read again, trinkets we didn't ask for but feel we must keep. And suddenly organizing isn't just about stuff anymore, it's about guilt. That's the third mistake I see so many women over 60 fall into, especially in small homes where every inch matters, decluttering with guilt instead of grace. We hold an old scarf and hear our mother's voice. We see a book we never read and think of the friend who gave it to us. We find a vase we never liked and still whisper, but it was from Aunt Linda. And before we know it, the thing is back on the shelf. Not because we love it, not because we need it, but because letting it go feels like a betrayal. But here's the truth I want to offer you gently. Your love is not measured by what you keep. The memory, the gratitude, the care you carry, none of that disappears if the item does. Guilt tricks us into thinking that holding on is the same as honoring. But grace teaches us that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is let something go with thanks. I remember working with a woman named Marie. She was 72, petite, elegant, the kind of woman who called everyone darling without a trace of irony. She had a shelf full of figurines, dozens of them, all dusty, all untouched for years. When I asked her about them, she sighed and said, "Every Christmas my sister sent me one. I never liked them really, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings." Her sister had passed 5 years earlier. Still, Marie couldn't bring herself to part with the collection. I didn't rush her. We just talked. And finally I asked, if you could keep just one that reminds you of her love, but not the obligation, would you know which one? She paused, touched a little angel holding a violin. "This one," she said. We kept that one, donated the rest to a local shop, and when we were done, she whispered, "I still feel close to her, but lighter." I've gone through this myself. After my brother passed, I kept a box of his things, notes, little tools, even a baseball glove I hadn't touched in decades. For years, I moved that box from closet to closet. One day, I sat with it, held each thing, told it thank you, and let most of it go. I kept his pocket knife, still sits on my bookshelf. Sometimes I hold it in my hand and think of summer afternoons, the two of us barefoot in the yard, carving our initials into tree trunks. I didn't need the whole box to keep the bond. Just one true reminder was enough. Because that's what grace looks like. It's not about what you give away. It's about how gently you choose what to keep. The guilt we carry often has nothing to do with the object and everything to do with how we were raised, to be thoughtful, to be responsible, to remember. But grace whispers something softer. You can remember without the burden. You can love without the weight. Letting go doesn't mean you've forgotten. It means you're making room to remember in a way that feels lighter. So if you're staring at something right now, heart tangled in guilt, I invite you to pause. Take a breath. Ask, do I love this, or do I just feel like I should? And if the answer is guilt, thank you. Mistake number 4, keeping just in case items that no longer serve you. There's a phrase I've heard more times than I can count. Maybe you've said it too, or thought it quietly to yourself as you held an item you hadn't touched in years. I should probably keep this just in case. And just like that, it goes back on the shelf, back into the drawer, back into the closet. Not because we use it, not because we love it, but because some part of us whispers, what if I need it someday? This is one of the gentlest and most sneaky mistakes we make as we age, especially in a small home where every inch matters. Keeping things just in case that no longer serve the life we're actually living now. Now, don't get me wrong. Being prepared is wise. But there's a big difference between being prepared and being afraid. And too often, Our just in case items aren't about readiness. They're about fear. Fear of needing something and not having it. Fear of change. Fear of becoming someone new. I once worked with a woman named Carol. She was 78 and had the sweetest little apartment, sunlight pouring into her kitchen, soft rugs in every room. But her hallway closet was so full she couldn't close the door. I asked her what was inside, and she said, coats, extra blankets, old purses, things I might need if life changes again. We sat on the floor together and began pulling things out. One by one, we asked the same question. Have you used this in the last 5 years? For most of it, the answer was no. But when we got to a pair of high heels, black, narrow, elegant, she held them like they were fragile. I wore these to my niece's wedding 12 years ago, she smiled. I haven't worn heels since. I asked gently, do you see yourself wearing them again? She laughed. Honey, at this point, I need shoes that won't throw me off balance. We both smiled. She let them go. That's the thing. We change. Our needs change. Our bodies change. And our homes should reflect the truth of who we are now, not who we used to be, or who we might be in some far-off imaginary moment. I've done this too. I used to keep a second toaster. Not because I needed it, but because I thought, what if my daughter visits and brings the grandkids, and we all want toast at the same time? She hadn't visited in years. The grandkids didn't eat toast, but still, I kept that toaster. One day, I finally let it go, gave it to a neighbor's college-age son who needed one. And you know what? I didn't miss it. I gained a little more room and a little more honesty. If you haven't needed it in 5 years, maybe it's not a lifeline. Maybe it's just weight you forgot you were carrying. So if you're holding on to something right now just in case, I invite you to ask, is this fear or is this useful? Is this for a life I'm actually living or for one I'm afraid to admit I've moved on from? Mistake number 5, forgetting to make room for joy. There's something that happens quietly, almost without us noticing. We start decluttering with good intentions. We want space. We want simplicity. We begin removing things that feel unnecessary or too heavy. But somewhere along the way, we forget what we're making room for. And that brings us to the 5th mistake, forgetting to make room for joy. Decluttering isn't just about taking things away. It's about adding something better in its place. Not more stuff, but more peace, more light, more of you. I once sat with a woman named Alice, 81 years old and sharp as ever. She had done an incredible job decluttering her little 2-bedroom cottage. Her surfaces were spotless, closets clear. But when I walked in, I felt something missing. The space looked tidy, but not alive. I asked her gently, what in this room still makes you smile? She thought for a long moment, then pointed to a faded photograph on the shelf. That one, she said. The rest, I kept because they were neutral. Neutral? What a word. Safe, yes. But joyless. I've seen this again and again, especially among women our age. We've spent decades taking care of others. We know how to be practical. We know how to be responsible. But we often forget we are still allowed to feel delight, to hang the painting that doesn't match anything but makes us laugh, to keep the floral mug that's chipped but reminds us of Sunday mornings, to light the candle just because the scent reminds us of the garden we once had. I remember after my wife passed, I cleared so much of the house. It helped me breathe, but for a while it felt hollow. Until one day I found a small embroidered pillow she had once made, bright yellow, with a sun stitched right in the center. I almost didn't keep it. Too loud, I thought, but then I placed it on my chair. And every morning since, when I sit down with my coffee, that little sun greets me. And somehow, I feel her warmth. Not because of the object, but because of the joy it carries. That's the invitation here. When you declutter, Don't just ask what to let go. Ask, what do I want to feel more of in this space? Beauty, lightness, color, warmth. You're not just curating a house, you're curating a life. A home filled only with what's useful may be tidy, but a home filled with what's meaningful is where your soul can rest. So please, as you clear the clutter, don't forget to leave room for joy, for something lovely, something soft, something that feels like you. And when you're home, if you've made one of these mistakes, maybe tried to do it all in one weekend, maybe bought bins you didn't really need, or maybe kept something because it tugged at your heart, I want you to know, please don't feel bad. We all have. We've all stood there, item in hand, torn between logic and memory. Decluttering isn't about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it kindly. Kindly toward yourself. Kindly toward your season of life. Kindly toward the home that has carried your laughter, your losses, your love for years. There's no gold star for getting it all done in a day, but there is peace in making one honest choice at a time. One drawer, one moment, one truth. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, start small. Stay gentle. And keep asking, not with pressure, but with compassion. Does this reflect who I am today? Does this still serve me? Or am I holding on because I'm afraid to let go? You don't need permission to release what no longer fits your life. You only need to trust that the space you clear isn't a loss. It's an invitation, an opening, a quiet promise to yourself. I still matter here. Was there a moment in this video that felt like it was written just for you? Maybe a story, a phrase, a memory that came rushing back. If so, would you leave me a comment? I'd love to know which part touched your heart. I read every word. And if this video gave you even one small breath of peace, a single quiet exhale, share it with someone you love. Someone who's been trying to find their way back to lightness just like you. Because